Hey, welcome back, everyone. It's Ned from Caspio. Welcome to another episode of Caspio Live. We took a bit of a break, but we are officially back to our regular programming. Hey, Didier, good to see you again. Long time no see. So we were supposed to have the live stream last week, but I was off for a week and a half, and then I realized I mistimed my arrival. I realized that I was coming back the day before the live stream, which didn't give me enough time to prep for the live stream, so I decided to postpone for this week instead. And today we're going to be building a medication tracking app. As always, we do a live example of the app before we go into the building part. I'd like to give you a demo of what we're going to create, and then slowly but surely we create all the functionality throughout the live stream. So I hope everyone's having a good Wednesday and a good week. Today's live stream will take approximately 1 hour. We have a few data pages to create today, and because I have to explain the process of building the application, that's usually why it takes a little bit longer. But once you learn how to use the Caspio platform, of course, you can build this out very quickly. Usually wouldn't take me more than 10-15 minutes to create all of the interfaces that you're going to see today. But yeah, welcome back. Glad to hear that you can actually hear me. Usually that's what I ask in the beginning, quick housekeeping item, but looks like you can hear me, so that's good. All right, let's get into it. All right, enough with the fluff. Let's go into it. We're going to take a look at the live example of the application first. We have two different users that are going to be logging in. We have the doctors and we have the patients. As a doctor, let's go ahead and log in. That's actually me. And I'm going to use a very simple password of test. That was supposed to be me, but I believe I used my work email. So let's log in. Bear with me for a second. Test. All right, so once we log in as the doctor, we see a list of patients. Now, this is not a complete application, okay? This is really just to demonstrate the functionality of how we are able to assign medication to patients and how we can comment back and forth with the patient as they're taking their medication so they can provide any symptoms that they're experiencing so that we know if we need to lower the dosage, increase the dosage, maybe completely stop the medication, depending on how they feel. Okay, so here we have the ability to manage patients. I only have one patient as sample data. It's Ken Lee. And now, of course, if I wanted to expand upon this, I can have another tab here that says add new patient. We're not going to do that today. So we go into the patient's details, and in the patient's details, I can see more information pertaining to my patient. I can prescribe new medication or assign new medication for this patient. So for example, if I say, I'm not really good with medication names. Let's just say Tylenol. A dosage 500 milligrams. Start date can be today. And let's end the medication end of month. Description, pain reliever, and directions take once daily with food. Something like that. Upon submission, we're going to be able to see that directly underneath inside the report. Okay, so now I've assigned second medication to Ken Lee. And then in the details, we can notify Ken, hey, your doctor just assigned new medication to you. Go to your maybe local pharmacy and pick that up. And then from there, we can go to comments and we can see this conversation going back and forth between the doctor and the patient so that we can track the success and failure of the medication that we prescribe. So simple little application that came in from a prospect who wanted to build something like that for their practice. And this is why we decided to bring this into the live stream. Now, on the flip side, when we log in as the patient, we also get to see some information, not as much as the doctor, but let's see, patient.com, password test. And as a patient, I can see my profile. I can see the medication that was assigned to me, including this latest one, Tylenol. And then I can go into comments, and here I can submit a new comment back to the doctor, and I can say, here is some random text about the medication you prescribed. And hit submit. I should be able to see that comment as Ken Lee. But then here, when we go into it as the doctor and we reload the page, I will be able to see that submission from Ken. So now we can have a little communication going back and forth. that's the app. I think we have about 10 data pages to create. We're going to deploy our application to these sample web pages that I've created for today. And yeah, let's go into it. As always, I don't actually create all the tables from scratch because that would be too time consuming, but I will go through each table so that you can see the fields and data types. But in this application, we have 4 tables. We have the table for patients, we have the table for doctors, medication, and comments. My doctor's table is a very simple one. We have name, email, and password so they can log in. Now keep in mind that if you want to expand upon these tables, you can. Yeah, I don't believe that I'm still getting your emails. That's interesting. And I actually tried to find you in our CRM, but I wasn't able to pull up any information under that name because I meant to send you an email as well. So we're going to have to figure out a different method. And I also did receive an email from somebody else regarding their scope and their application. I forgot the name, but because I just came back recently from a vacation, I haven't had a chance to get to all of the emails. I've been a little bit backed up with the emails, but I will. I got a pretty lengthy email about the user management. I just can't remember who that is, but if you're here, just note that I did get your email and I will reply back. Okay, my apologies for not getting back to all the emails. All right, but if you wanted to, you can include other fields for your doctors here if you'd like. For example, address, phone number, email, and all those other fields. Then we have the table for patients. And Lucas, I'll try to come up with, I'll think of another way to get a hold of you. I don't know why I'm not getting your emails. It's really interesting. And I've checked my spam folder too, and I didn't see anything. So patients, same thing. If you wanted to, you could have other information, maybe their date of birth, their age, weight, maybe some medical history like pulse, heart rate, blood pressure, things like that. You could include that in the table. So those 2 tables are very simple. And then we have the medication table. The medication is going to be a one-to-many with the patients because each patient could have a lot of different medication assigned to them, like for example, Xanax and Tylenol for Ken Lee. So that's why we have the patient ID as a foreign key. I also have the doctor's ID in here as well because eventually, if you wanted to, you might have multiple doctors and you want to know which doctor prescribed that medication for that patient. And then all the other important fields that we might need, for example, medication name, description, dosage, directions, start and end date for when they're supposed to start their medication and also end the medication. Where it gets a lot more fun is when you start creating tasks to send notifications. So if the patient has an expiration date for their medication, you can send them a task or an email or SMS to let them know, hey, your medication is expiring tomorrow. Contact your doctor to get a refill. Or you can also notify the doctor as well. That's not really that fun, but it's a good way to automate and let users know when something is coming up. For me, the more fun part is to create dashboards. So if I'm a doctor, I would like to be able to see some analytics and metrics, some KPIs in terms of, what medication is working, what medication is not working. Maybe I can prescribe that to somebody else and things like that. And then we have the comments table. And the comments table is a one-to-many as well to the both patients and doctors, because we want to be able to not only store the medication ID, because again, comments will be for medication ID too, because one medication can have many comments, right? Going back and forth between the doctors and the patients. So I have 2 foreign keys. If the doctor submits a message or a comment, I want to stamp that doctor's ID. And if I get a response from a patient, I also want to stamp the patient's ID. Then we have the comment itself. I probably should have made that text 64,000. And then we have the date submitted to stamp when that comment was submitted. Now, one thing that I want to point out here is in my current setup, when there's a comment, you will see we have a blank cell. So if the doctor submits a comment, there's going to be a blank cell for the patient ID. When the patient submits a comment, there's a blank cell for the doctor ID, which is fine in this case because there's really just 2 columns that we're dealing with. However, if you don't want to have this setup where you have empty cells in your table, you could also have a single field to combine these two together, and it says submitted by ID. And then you're going to see a single column, and then we can have Ned's name up here, Ken's name, Ned's name, and other names repeating in the same column. That way you avoid having empty cells. But there's a drawback to that, okay? And not a drawback, there is also a fix to the drawback, but I mean, I felt like this was easier in today's live stream to explain it this way, because both methods work. But if you have a single field and you go into your relationships, imagine we have a single field submitted by ID, and you join the primary key from the doctor's table into that field. That's possible, right? We can do that. And then we can grab the value from the parent table to be displayed instead of the doctor's ID. So on the data page, we can display the name of the doctor on the report. However, I wouldn't be able to join the primary key from the patient's table into that same field. So that's the drawback. However, when you're submitting the comment, you can still submit the ID. You just can't do it here on this screen, but you can still submit the patient ID into that field using a data page. The problem is that we won't be able to grab the value and display it on the report. So I wouldn't be able to see the name of the patient. I'll just be able to see the ID of the patient. I'll be able to see the name of the doctor, but then it doesn't make any sense to see the name of the doctor, then the ID, name of the doctor, then the ID. It's not really legible in terms of like what I'm seeing on the front end. But to fix that, if you still want to have a single column in the comments table, you could create the view to join these three tables together. And then on your comments report, you can build that off of the view as opposed to the table. And that'll fix it. Then you're going to be able to see one column, and then you'll see all the names instead of the ID. I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm not confusing you. But for simplicity, I decided just to have two different foreign keys. So as I stamp, or as the patient submits the comment, we can see the patient's name. As the doctor submits the comment, we can see the doctor's name. But you end up having an empty cell as you make the comments to this table. But if you wish to have one field, you can. You will just have to build a view, join these three tables together, and then build your report off of the view instead of the comments table. That way now you can see the names of both the patients and the doctors inside the report. All right. Let's go back to my tables. So we went over each table. We have our two authentications, which are giving access to both the doctors and the patients. And then on the data pages, because you've seen me do this so many times now in previous live streams, I decided just to keep the data pages that allow us to log in. So this is the one-line script that hides the navigation menu from the login screen. So we have the doctor. Let me just go through it really quickly. This is an HTML data page. Okay, based off of the doctor authentication from this object. And then we have just a simple script that redirects the doctor. When they log in, they go to this web page here. Okay. And when you do that, it allows us to, this is supposed to be doctor login. My redirect is a little bit off. Okay, so when you do that, once the doctor logs in, you can see how I'm hiding the navigation menu that I have here. And upon logging in, I go to a web page that has the navigation menu. That's really the main reason why I like to use this standalone login script. And you can get that from this how-to article. I'll just paste that in the chat window, which is a very simple script that redirects. Okay, so that's for the doctors. And then I have the same one for the patients. And the patients are redirected to their profile page. Okay. I'm not trying to confuse you. We've done this so many times in previous live streams. It's really just meant to hide the navigation menu from the login screen. It's a bit of a cleaner look, more aesthetically pleasing for the front end. Okay, but it's just a bridge to get the user into the web page that has the navigation menu. So let's deploy it. Let's grab our data page, grab our embed code. And I'm going to use Notepad++, and we're going to begin with the doctor login. So here is my placeholder text. I will paste my snippet of code. I will save this page, and now inside my WinSCP, which I use to move files to my hosting provider. Let's just go back to the root folder here and grab a different folder, MTA Live and MTA Live. And I will just move over my doctor login, push that live. And now on this page where I had my placeholder previously, I will just reload the page and I should be able to see that login screen deployed. I will close these two previous ones. All right, so now as a doctor, I can go ahead and log in. That happens to be me. And as soon as I log in, I'm redirected to that page, okay, that we talked about just a moment ago. And now I need to build the rest of my functionality and deploy it here on Manage Patients. So we're going to begin by building Manage Patients. So we'll need a report, tabular format, hit Next. Based off of the patients table, let's call this Manage Patients. Style can be blue. Localization can be English. And restrict access to our doctors. We're going to hit Next. Okay, so I always like to have a search form when I'm managing information. So if I'm managing projects, if I'm managing patients, orders, I always like to show a search form. My personal preference is to show the results underneath the search form, and I always like to display my results on the initial load. You don't need to enable record level security because as the doctor, I should be able to see all the patients. I'm the highest level user, but if you had somebody in that practice who was above the doctor level, maybe an admin or something like that, then you might want to enable RLS for the doctors because then they probably need to see limited information or maybe just the patients that are assigned to them and not necessarily see all the patients from the database. All right, so let's search based on name and email, just something simple. We're going to use contains comparison type for both search fields. Of course, you could have other options here. If you wanted to search by dropdown, maybe using autocomplete, which is like Google search, you have a plethora of options on how you can modify your search fields. But just for the interest of time, we're going to stick with contains for both of our two search fields. I'm going to hit Next. I would like to show the name and email on the results page. Hit Next. You could enable some inline editing here if you'd like. Because I usually have a custom details page for each one of my records, most of the time I will not enable inline editing capability. But for example, if you wanted to delete a patient, you could. It's up to you. Now on the results page, I do want to include an HTML block. We've covered this plenty of times in the past. We need to create a link. And when we click on that link, we are redirected to the patient's details page. Okay, so it's a very simple thing to create. Let's just call this patient details. We're going to highlight the text, click on the link button, and then let's call, what did I call that page? Let me see my web pages. Doctor Manage Patients, not that one. Doctor Patient Details. That's the name of my web page that I created. Doctor Patient Details. All right, so we're going to input that. Doctor Patient Details is the name of my web page. And in the process, what we need to do when we click on that link, it's very important that we pass the patient's ID, because on the subsequent page, on the next page, once you pass the patient ID, you want to display all the information that pertains to that patient. So that's why it's important to pass the patient ID. So my parameter name is going to be PID. I always like to abbreviate my parameter names. That stands for patient ID. You can call it whatever you want. We add an equal sign, and then we simply just add patient ID that we're going to be passing and click OK. So now that becomes a clickable link. However, if you use this method by clicking this button, going to the source, to keep the link relative or path, just remove the HTTP protocol. Okay, otherwise it's going to redirect you to an unknown page. All right, that's it. We hit next. Let's display 25 patients at a time. That's fine. And no need for a details page in this case, because again, like I said, I always like to create a custom details page, especially if I have related items from other tables that pertain to the main record. In this case, the patient is going to have multiple medications, so that's why I need to display medication based on that patient ID. Finish. let's deploy this data page very quickly and easily. We're going to grab our embed code, and in Notepad++, we paste, we save, and we push it live. All right, doctor manage patients, and now when we reload that page, we should be able to see Ken Lee. So we have our two search fields. We have Ken's information. I only have name and email. Of course, if you have other information, you can display it here. But I'm keeping my tables to a minimum in terms of fields. And now we can click on patient's details, and you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of my screen, you can see at the very end, there's something called PID equals and the ID that belongs to Ken Lee. So when I click on this text or this link, now I'm taken to this page called Doctor Patient Details. I've passed Ken's ID, and on this page, we now need to build a few more data pages that are going to be linked to that patient ID that we just passed at the very top. You can see it here in my URL. And we're going to begin with the patient's details. So let's build out a data page, reports, and let's go with a custom details page. Click next. Based off of the patient's table, call this patient details. Style can be blue, localization English, and restrict access to doctors. Click next. No need for a search form, right? We just want to be able to see the details of that patient. So when I click on that link, I just want to be able to display the patient's details. There's really no need to search because on the previous page, we have the ability to search. I just want to be able to see the patient's details here. So filter data, click next, and we want to filter based on the patient's ID. And now you're going to see how we link everything using the patient ID. So I need to be able to filter the information based on that ID. And inside the advanced tab, we're going to receive the value. So again, we passed the value. Now we need to receive the value externally. External parameters, those are the ones that you pass in the URL. Okay, those are considered external parameters. The parameter name needs to match PID, and value must be required. Okay, very important, this radio button. Right, in order for me to display Ken's information, the correct value is required to be passed. And now if you had, of course, if you had more fields, you can include that in the details view. I only have name and email that we're going to include. We're going to hit next, and I'll just keep everything display only. However, if in the details page you want to be able to modify this information, you can change the form element to something else. Okay, but we're going to keep everything read only and click finish. And now we're going to deploy that. Copy. Let's go into our Notepad++ and doctor patient details. My very first placeholder is to display the patient's details. We're going to save, and we're going to push patient details live. Let's go into our web page, and now I will see Ken's information. If I had another patient here listed and I clicked on details, I would be able to see that patient's information because I connected it using this ID that I passed externally in the URL. Okay. And as you can see, it's read only or display only. I don't have the ability to edit, but I could make all this information editable. One thing that I like to do in my applications, I always like to display everything as read only. And then what I would do is create maybe like a little edit button up here in the upper right, or maybe here on the left. So when you click on the edit button, maybe you have a pop-up in the middle to update Ken's information. For those who are new to the live streams, I'm going to show you an example of what I'm talking about very quickly. Let's go into my sales CRM demo that I have, just so you know exactly what I'm talking about. What is my admin.com password test 123. So if this was our application today, you have a list of patients, right? We have the ability to search. There's a list of patients. We can go into the details of that patient. And you can see I'm displaying everything as read only. I put my little edit button, and there's a pop-up up here where I can now modify. I need to change this. I forgot to remove the black background. But now I have a pop-up where I can modify the information for that patient. I hit update, and that will reflect here on this in this block or in this placeholder container that I have. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. If I was really going above and beyond in really tweaking the application, making it look nice, I could put an edit button up here, pop-up. If you'd like to do something like this with the pop-up, I've done a live stream on this before. Just look for modal window, Caspio modal, and you should be able to find it on the YouTube channel. There's a live stream dedicated just to creating this modal pop-up. All right, let's continue. Now we want to be able to submit new medication for Ken Lee. So we go into our data pages, we create a new one. Of course, we need a submission form for that. We'll hit next based off of the medication table. And let's call this new medication. Style can be English, or sorry, blue, and then localization can be English, and restrict access to our doctors. Click next. In this case, I need all my fields on the form, so we're going to move them all to the right. Click next, and again, you're going to see how we connect the PID or the patient ID on this details page. Because I passed the ID, my submission form is now going to receive this ID as well. Because when I submit the form, this medication form, we're going to stamp this ID inside the medication table. And that's how you associate your medication back to your patient. Okay, so we simply make this field hidden. Very simple. The patient ID field is going to be hidden. No need for that to be visible. You're going to select external parameters, and all you have to do is just name it the same exact way, PID. That's it. Hey, Finesse Jones. Glad to see you here. Hopefully we'll see you again in the future live stream. These are bi-weekly, so we always have a fast-paced development in these live stream because we only get 1 hour and we can never really truly build a massive application, but we build bits and pieces of applications and functionality that you can take away and hopefully incorporate into your own applications. Please make modal pop-up a standard feature. Eventually it will be. I don't want to overpromise and say too much, but yes, it will eventually be a standard feature in Caspio. All right, then we have the doctor ID. Now we are logged in as me, right? I'm the sample user as a doctor, right? So what we can do here is make this field hidden as well. Again, no need to display this on the form. We make that field hidden, and we can just use the authentication method of whichever doctor is logged into the application and look back into the doctor's table and automatically stamp the doctor's ID. So here you can see both methods of how we can stamp a primary key as a foreign key in the related table. One uses the external parameter passed in the URL, as you can see. That's one method. And the second method is using the authentication fields to stamp the doctor's ID. Both methods are effective. It just depends on the scope and what you're developing. Then we have a medication name. So we're going to make that field required. Medication description, that's going to be a required field. Text area. Probably don't have to preface this with medication. Description should be just enough. Dosage, yeah, required field. Directions, required field. Probably a text area as well. Start date, required field. Don't think you need medication in front of the label here. And that's also going to be a required. So all of these fields are required. And then on the following screen, in this case, I don't need to see a confirmation message. I will just reload the same form. And what I mean by that is when you submit this form, you're going to see that submission directly underneath anyway. And that should be a confirmation enough that you submitted the form. That's why there's really no need for you to see, oh, your submission was successful. Okay. Then we'll hit finish to save. We'll deploy this, grab our embed code. And in the Notepad++, that's my second placeholder. So now you can see how we have two data pages deployed on the same web page. You can have as many data pages as you want on a single web page. There's no limit. That's why dashboards are so fun to build, because you can have multiple charts, maybe a pivot table, tabular report to see all of the KPIs. All right, so now let's push that live. By the way, if you're not technical enough to use HTML code, that's usually what I do. I use Notepad++ to modify my HTML. I don't want people to think that this is too technical. There are plenty of website builders today that Caspio is compatible with. If you're using Webflow, that's the one that I would recommend. It's really easy. There's not a huge steep learning curve with Webflow, but it's highly customizable if you want to move objects around and tweak the width, the padding, the margin between all of your objects on the web page in terms of spacing. But you can also use Squarespace, you can use WordPress, you can use Weebly. I don't know what other ones are out there, but they're all compatible with Caspio's platform, the embed code. All right, we pushed that live, right? Let me just make sure I move that again. And now we're going to reload and we're going to see that form. Now, you may be wondering, well, you know, this is pushing my container where I won't be able to see the patient medication. You have all this empty wasted space. Doesn't look that good. What I've done in the past is I have moved this container side by side with the details. That way you can free up some space and be able to see medication underneath. Or you can make this to be maybe 2 rows, not necessarily all the fields in a same column, one underneath the other. So that's what I'll do for today's live stream. But just note that if you're savvy enough to modify your HTML, you could change the width of this object and put this object side by side. That way you free up some real estate on your web page and move things around the way you want. But let me just quickly show you how you can maybe make this form look a little bit nicer. It's all subjective, but I'm going to just modify it slightly. New medication, we're going to hit next, and once we reach the properties screen, we can make some changes. So let's go with the label and add the label to be a placeholder text instead. And then I'll say no label. When you add the placeholder text, all we're doing is moving this label inside the field, because that's enough for me to know what I need to type in there, right? So let's come back here. And what we'll do next is just simply repeat. I think I'm going to put placeholders for all of my fields. So let's do that first. So description, label, placeholder, no label, dosage, same thing. Just bear with me for a second while I do this really quickly. No label, directions, whoops, copy, placeholder, no label, and then start and end date, copy, paste, no label, and then end date, copy, paste, no. Now, the next thing that I want to do, I have 2 text area fields. I'm going to move those towards the bottom. So we'll move these 2 fields at the very bottom. So medication. By the way, if you want to select multiple fields, you can hold Control on the keyboard and move them all at once, up and down if you'd like. So let's put the dosage next to the name. So we'll say continue next element on the same line. And let's just have the date fields also be on the same line. And then for the description and directions, we're going to add a section here. And then we'll just say, I don't need to have 5 rows. Let's do 2 rows for both of these. I don't need my box to be that tall. And then we'll just put the directions side by side with the description. Click finish. And I don't know if that's going to look good, but let's just test it out. I'll reload my page. That's not bad. I mean, I can continue modifying this even more if I wanted to have the equal width with the top row with the bottom row. I could do that. But now I've freed up some space where I can actually see my medication underneath that form. All right, so let's build out this report where we can now see the medication that belongs to the patient. So data page, reports. Medication is my data source. Let me see. Please make modal. Okay, let me see. A dashboard type data page. A dashboard type data page could also be a great idea for the future. Just a single data page that displays everything. Is that what I'm reading? Let me know if you can just expand upon that. I'll come back to your comment, but let's continue. Data page name, view patient medication. Style is going to be blue. Localization English. And again, restrict access to our doctors. Click next. Now, no need to search, right? Because I'm already in the patient's details. I just want to be able to see medication that pertains to this patient. So there's really no need for me to search unless you have thousands of medications prescribed to that single patient. I hope that's not the case, right? Some people do have a lot of medication, but I don't anticipate my patients having maybe more than 5, 10, 15 medications, at which point you should be able to see all of them listed here at a glance and quickly go through it without the need to search. But I guess to each their own, right? Depending on the app too, right? So we will simply filter our data, again, based on the medication ID. Sorry, I'm incorrect. Based on the patient ID, because everything on this page ties together with the patient ID that we passed from the previous page, okay? So the details page is receiving the patient ID. There's a hidden field here that's submitting the patient ID. And now my report also needs to filter the medication based on that patient ID. So same setup, receive the value externally, PID, and value is required. And then on the next page, what do we want to display? Probably the medication name. Well, I think we can display all of this information in the results page. Do I want inline edit? I could enable inline edit if I wanted to, but we're going to hit next. And this is my results page. So we have medication name. I don't need that in my label. I don't need that in my label. Don't need this in my label. To me, it's clear enough that we're looking at medication info, because I'm going to keep this one here, medication name. The rest of the information, the rest of the columns are going to tie to the medication name, right? And then what we want to do is include another HTML block here. And we want to be able to see view comments, highlight the text, click on the link button, and then my page is called, let's see, what did I call it? Doctor comments. So doctor comments .html question mark. And this time we want to pass the medication ID. So we tie the comments back to our medication, right? So each medication will have multiple comments. It is our second tier one-to-many. So this application has two levels of one-to-many. One patient has many medications, and one medication can have many comments. So we pass the medication ID this time. That's the primary key. Click OK. And just don't forget to go into the source and remove this protocol HTTP. Let me make sure and verify everything looks good. It does. Click next. We're going to see 25 medication. Now, I don't have a date field. I wish that I added date submitted field. Then I can sort my data from the most recent medication given to the patient, but I don't have that. So that's fine. Hit next, and no need for a details page. And click finish. Let's deploy this. Grab our embed code. I always feel bad, and I don't want to say I feel bad, but I feel bad because every live stream, I always explain myself the same exact way. It's like a broken record, right? And to those who are savvy enough with Caspio, who've been using Caspio for a long time, it might be repetitive, but we have to realize that a lot of times we get new people to attend the live stream, so that's why it's always the same way of explaining everything. All right, we need to go back to the details page and deploy our very last data page to be able to see medication. Refresh, move patient details, and let's have a look. All right, there we have it, our Xanax for Ken Lee. So let's add one more medication. Remember how I added Tylenol earlier? I added that to my live application. That's why you don't see Tylenol here. That was done inside the live application, but we can repeat it. So Tylenol, 500 milligrams, start date can be, I just want to make sure everything is functioning. That's why I'm adding it again. Description, pain reliever, and directions, take twice a day with water. So upon submission, we won't see a confirmation message, okay? But we will be able to see that submission directly underneath. And if I had date submitted, I would sort this so this comes out on top and Xanax is underneath, because I want to see the most recent medication given to the patient. But I don't have that field in my table, unfortunately. Okay, so the last thing that we want to add here is the comments. So I want to be able to see all the comments that go back and forth between the patient and the doctor. So first we need to create the form that submits the comment. So let's build that data page. That's a submission form. Let me see if I have any questions coming in. Okay, like a backend page editor. Yes, with choices of different settings, like in the case of charts data pages. Oh, I see. I love the repetition. That way when I go to a past lesson, it is complete. Oh, good. Good to know. All right. So that is actually a good idea, Didier. I will consider that and suggest that to our engineering team. That is a good idea. I mean, we've done dashboards before, but it usually uses multiple data pages, right? Like one for one chart, second one for another chart. Then we've done some SQL statements as well in the details page, which I covered in a previous live stream. But maybe somebody wants to see something slightly more technical, where if I log in as the user, we could do things like this, for example. So here's an example of a sales CRM. Where we have these tabs on the top. So if I'm a sales, now there's not a lot of sample data in this application, please mind that. So if I go to today's sales data, I will be able to filter just today's data. This week, this month, this year. And then we have, a drop down that, kind of compares last year to this year in terms of sales data. Then we have opportunities as a sales rep. We can see closing probability, things like that. This is a little bit more technical, a bit more involved. Usually our PS team handles these types of consultations if you have something that requires a bit more coding on the Caspio side. It's doable, as you can see, but it does have a great deal of JavaScript and SQL inside the data page to perform this type of functionality. As an herbalist, I really like this. I have a follow-up meeting today with Caspio. Okay, good. Good. So this could actually be a good fit. Depending, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the application, but if it's something similar to what we're building today, then yeah, absolutely. And this is really bare bones what I'm building today. It can get much fancier and much better looking. But again, we just cover the functionality in these live streams because we don't have the time to get into the aesthetics and all the buttons, loading bars, and all the fancy things, dynamic things that you would see in an application. But it's possible. All right, so let's build this form to submit a comment, shall we? So we have our data source, we have our style, which is going to be blue, we have our localization English, and we're going to call this new comment. Restrict access to our doctors, click next. Let me think for a second. So because it's a doctor, I definitely need medication ID. I need my doctor ID. No need for patient ID because they're going to have their own form to submit, and they'd submit it. So the medication ID, same as before, we make this field hidden, external, and that's going to be MID. Because as you can see in my example here, I'm now passing the patient ID, and now on this web page, everything needs to tie together using medication ID. Before, we tied everything using the patient ID, so when you click on this link, we pass the patient ID. On this web page, everything ties together using patient ID. But now we have our second tier of one-to-many. So if you continue going, so you can have an infinite number of these one-to-manys. But if I go into now this web page, now everything needs to tie together using medication ID. So we receive it. This one's very simple. Again, we make this field hidden. We don't need to display that on the form. And then the authentication field is going to stamp the doctor's ID in the comments table. Then we have the comment itself, likely going to be a required field, text area, and date submitted is going to be a timestamp. No need for us to see that. We hit next, and same as before, no need to see a confirmation message because as soon as I submit the form, I'll be able to see it underneath. So we simply say, load the same form. Finish and deploy. And I just need maybe 10-15 minutes more of your time. We'll be done with today's application. Looks like we're on time. So doctor comments, I have 2 data pages to deploy here. So here's my first one, which is to submit the comment. Let's push this live. All right, so where is my doctor comments page? There it is. Reload, and we should be able to now see that form. I don't see my comments underneath, so even if I submit something here for this, I think it's Tylenol. Have you taken your medication yet? If so, have you experienced any side effects? Let us know as soon as you get a chance. Anyway, so we hit submit. It was submitted. We don't see it yet, but we need to now build that report in order to see that comment. So new data page, reports. I'm going to go with the tabular format. Click next, comments, view comments, blue style, localization English, restrict access, and continue. Again, no need to search because over the period of that medication from start to end date, again, I'm not anticipating a lot of comments to be submitted from both the doctor and the patient, so really there's no need to search. I think we can just filter, hit next, and once again, everything ties together using the medication ID field, so that needs to be my filtering field. And we are going to go into the advanced tab, receive externally, MID, and value is required, and continue. Now, what information do I want to see visible? Well, I want to be able to see the doctor's name. I want to be able to see the patient's name, the comment itself, and date submitted. So that we can see like this interaction back and forth between the patients and the doctors. Click next. Not gonna edit anything here. Let's continue. I don't want to see, I could rename the label to doctor's name or something like that, and this can be patient's name, but it's okay to leave that empty in this case because when you submit the comment, you will be able to see the name in the report. Okay, so we just remove the label and then the comment, we're going to leave that the way it is. We have date submitted, click next, and we could actually see the most recent comment first. And then in the next, we don't need a details page, so we click finish. And let's grab our final deploy code for the doctor's side. We grab that widget, and then we come back here and just simply say paste. We will push that page live once again. And we should be able to see that comment that we just submitted as Ned, who happens to be the doctor. So the idea really here is when we go to manage patients, there's Ken Lee. We go to details. All right, well, I gave Ken this Tylenol to take. I haven't received the submission from Ken yet to know how he's feeling based on that. The starting date is today, but I was expecting him already to submit his comment. So we go into comments, and I just want to submit this comment for Ken to let me know, hey, have you taken your medication yet? By the way, you could also notify Ken via text and email immediately as soon as you submit this comment to let him or her know, hey, log into your account. There's a comment from your primary care or your doctor to let you know you just received a comment. Or you can put the comment itself in the body of the email so they don't have to log in. They can just see it right there. All right, let's finish everything off with the patient side. So we are now going to work on the patients folder. We have our login screen data page. I will get to your comments at the end. I apologize. I just want to get through all the content. We have 10 more minutes and I don't want to run behind. We have the patient login. We're going to deploy that here and push that page live. Patient login. We should be able to see that now. And let's log in now as Ken Lee at patient.com test. And now we need to create the profile for Ken Lee. So when they log in, they should be able to see their profile. So let's work on that data page. Reports, custom details page, or you could also go with the update if you'd like. With the update, as soon as they log in, they're going to see the fields to update. either as read-only or as updatable fields. I don't know. I'm just used to using the details page for some reason. That needs to be patient's table because we're pulling information from that table. My profile. Style again, blue, English, restrict access this time to patient authentication. Very important. I don't want anyone to select doctors because the patients are logging in. All right, so we're going to filter our data. We're going to enable RLS because as a patient, when I log in, I want to be able to see just my own information that's tied together to my patient ID. So we enable RLS, we click next, and I want to be able to see my name and email. Again, if you had more fields, they'd be able to see more fields in the profile page, but my table is very simple. Sorry, these are my filtering fields. I apologize. We click next, and now we include the results page or the details page fields. Name and email. Yeah, you could include the password field if you want the patient to update their password. It's up to you. So these are going to be display only, or I could make them text fields if I want my patients to update their profile. No need to navigate to the next record because there should only be one profile per patient. It's a one-to-one. We click finish. And now we deploy the profile page so Ken can see his information or her information. So we go over here to Notepad++, patient profile. And there's my placeholder. Paste, save. Almost done. All right, I should be able to now see Ken Lee. All right, let's continue. Almost done. Now let's see the medication that belongs to Ken Lee. Now, instead of me recreating that data page from scratch, once I have a similar data page elsewhere, for example, view patient medication, I can just make a copy of that one, save me a little bit of time, and I can move that now inside my patient folder. Okay, now it's the exact same data page, okay, but you have to make modifications to this one. It's very important. So we click edit because this one now belongs to the patient. We hit next. I'm just going to remove the underscore and one. We need to flip this over to patient authentication. Click next. Let me think for a second. We're going to filter, and now it's very important to enable RLS because we want to be able to see just the medication that belongs to us as the patient. Okay, so record level security here is very important. Okay. We hit next. Filtering fields. No need for filtering fields because we're not linking anything to an external parameter. When I log in as the patient, because I'm already using RLS here, I'm going to be able to see just the medication that belongs to me. Okay, so no need for filtering fields in any way. These are my fields that will be displayed on the results page. We're going to hit next. As a patient, there's really no need for me to be able to delete this medication. That should be controlled by the doctor. There's really no need for me to edit. Again, that's controlled by the doctor. We're going to hit next. We're going to keep all of this the same. And then for my HTML block, I just have to replace my destination URL to the patient side. So that's called patient comments. So instead of doctor comments, we want to rename this to patient comments. And again, you're going to pass the medication ID to the next page. So all of that remains the same. It's just the URL that changes. Okay, we hit next. That's fine. No details page, and we're done with that data page. Let's deploy it. All right, paste. And 2 more data pages left to create, and we are officially done. Patient profile, reload, and I should now be able to see both Xanax and Tylenol. These are the 2 that have been prescribed to me from myself. I'm the doctor in this case. And then if I go to Tylenol, I should be able to now, as Ken Lee, I should be able to see that comment that was submitted to me from the doctor. But we haven't built those 2 data pages yet, so let's build them out. Once again, to submit a comment, we have a data page created. We're going to make a copy of it. And we will move that into the patient folder. All right, patient folder. And let's go ahead and edit. I will remove once this becomes available to me to remove. There we go. Switched it over to patients. And instead of stamping the doctor ID, I want to stamp the patient ID this time. So make this field hidden, authentication method, and stamp the patient ID into the comments table. Same form, done. Let's deploy it. Copy it. Notepad++ in my patient comments. Let me go down a little bit. Paste. All right, let's push this one live. I always, once I deploy one data page, I don't know, it's just a habit. I could build all of my data pages, put them in Notepad++ all at once, but it's just a personal preference. Once I deploy one data page, I always like to push this live and just to see what it looks like. So my patient comments, I reload. I just want to see what the form looks like. There's my form. And now the final one is view comments. So we have that data page. We're going to copy it and move it into our, it's a lot of data pages that we built today. I don't even know how many that is. I think it's 13 data pages. Okay. View comments. Let's edit. Once again, patient. Wait for this to become editable. All right, so let's think this for a second. Wait a minute, did I forget to do something with the medication on the form? Maybe I did, but here for the comments, in order to view the comments, I have to receive the medication ID. So we are going to hit next. Sorry, my brain has reached, because it's already included in here because I made a copy of the previous data page. I was looking at here on the left, where is my medication ID field? I don't see it, but because I made a copy of the other one, it's already here. So there's my medication ID. It's all the same. We're going to receive medication ID from the previous page, click next. And we want to be able to display all this information, same as before. I don't need to make any changes here. All of this is going to remain the same. We're going to click finish to save. And let's go ahead and deploy that. And paste. Oops. Paste, save. All right. Patient comments. Reload. Okay, so there's that comment submitted to me by my doctor. Okay, now I can respond back. But before I respond back, I want to make sure I built this form correctly. New comment. I should, because I made a copy of it. So yeah, we have the medication ID and then we're receiving it externally. Okay, perfect. So now when I respond back as the patient, sorry. Yeah, so we'll hit submit. There is the response from Ken Lee. On the flip side, when I go back in as the doctor and I reload, I'll be able to see that response from Ken Lee. And now we can communicate back and forth for that medication. Now, different medication won't have those same comments. So if we go back and look at Xanax, for example, you're going to see completely different comments. Okay, because it's for different medication. And that's it. We have, I don't know, 13 data pages that we created today. We have 5 here. We have, I think, 8 or 7. So total 12 data pages for this little simple app that has some decent functionality, I would say, between doctors and the patients. But yeah, you can see how quickly we're able to develop all of this. Even with me explaining, we were able to build everything in 1 hour, I think. Yeah, we just hit 1 hour. So let me read some of these comments and see if there's something I missed. Can you use Excel and upload these types of chart? So what you can do is you can import data from Excel. So if you go to import and choose file, you might have an Excel spreadsheet that you want to bring into Caspio. And then once you bring the data into Caspio, you can either create a new table with all the new data that you just imported, or you can append data to your existing data set. So In the import wizard, you have the ability to choose replace, append, update, different ways of bringing data into Caspio. Once your data is inside a table, okay, once the data is inside a table imported, well, then you have to build out these data pages, these interfaces. So you go create data page, and if you want to build a chart to display a visual representation of your data, maybe you want a bar chart, okay, you hit next. And then you connect the table where you imported that data to your chart. And now the chart is simply going to populate all of your numerical data, whatever you have in that table, in a chart format. Okay, that's how you get the chart to display information from that Excel file. I hope I'm explaining myself. Let me see if I can give you a quick example based on what we have in our tables today so that you can get an idea. Let's see, medication. I don't have the best data set because none of my fields are numerical data. You can see that it's all text 255, so it's really hard to calculate. But if your data types are numerical, like number, integer, or currency, it's much easier to do charts because now you can total, do sum, you can do averages on the chart. So it's really not a good data set for me to... I can give you a simple one where it shows 50% based on the medication that you have. So let me add one more medication of Xanax. Say, for example, I'm the doctor and I go into Ken's details and we say one more prescription of Xanax. Xanax, dosage 20 milligrams this time. Start date is going to be maybe the 1st of May and it's going to end the last of May. And then we simply just say just NA for now, hit submit. So there is a new prescription of Xanax added to Ken's medication. So now if I build let's say I build my pie chart based on the medication table and I use my medication name as my source field, it's going to display 75% Xanax and, wait, no, right? Am I right? That's should be 75% to 25%. Man, that's embarrassing. Okay, well, let's build a chart and find out for ourselves what's going to be. Let's come over here and just say, for doctors, I think it's 75-25. That has to be right. But if I go down to charts and we build out a pie chart, hit next based off of the medication table. So let's see, medications or something. I don't know what we're going to call that. Let's go with the blue style, localization English, restrict access, of course, to your doctor. You definitely want to do that. So if the doctor wants to see a distribution or a breakdown of all the medication given across all of their patients, you know, we could do that. So let's filter. No need to filter based on anything. But now when I set up my chart, maybe I can do category medication name. Value, we'll just do count, and let's show that as the percentage. If I hit preview now, embarrassing. I should have known it's 66 to 33%. That's so bad. That's so bad. It would have been 75 to 25. It was 3 Xanax and one Tylenol. Then it would have been 25-25. My dad would make fun of me right now because he always said I was bad with percentages. I hope he never watches this video. Oh, man. So much for scoring, what was it, 720 on SATs back in high school in math. But I don't know, for some reason, percentages have always given me a hard time. Plus, you know, you're live here, so you're kind of under a bit more pressure to get it right. But I dug my own hole with that one. So now with this chart, if I wanted, you know, myself, I'm the doctor in this case, to see the breakdown of medication that I'm assigning to my patients, this might be useful information for me to see. Maybe I have another tab over here that says dashboard, and I would embed my chart here so I can see, you know, where the the distribution of that medication based on the medication name. Which, is it useful? Yeah, yes and no. In this case, maybe. I think Trying to think what would be a better chart for this type of application. The problem is that I'm not really using like numerical data sets here. This is more all text 255, so it's really hard to come up with something good. Yeah. Can't think of something right now on the spot. But thank you so much for attending today's live stream. I really appreciate it. The goal is always for you to learn something new. So hopefully we did learn something new today. I try my best to include new things from Caspio that we haven't covered in the past. But we've done almost 100 of these episodes. So it's really hard to bring up something that we haven't done before unless it's more custom using JavaScript, which we try to avoid. Because Caspio, first and foremost, it is a no-code platform. A lot of functionality can be built using no code, but we also don't want to limit imagination. So that's why we are considered a low code as well, because you can inject these industry standard languages into our data page framework to create more dynamic things. So if you wanted to, you could add JavaScript to your data pages using either an HTML block or a header and footer. So I can add my script here to override something in my fields or to create something dynamic if I ever wanted to do something like that. Another thing that you could do is add SQL. Can I show you an example of SQL here? So if I wanted to see how many medications are assigned to Ken Lee, in this case we have 3, I believe. I could use a simple one line of SQL to display 3 here. That way I don't have to click on details if I want to see the number of medications assigned to Ken Lee. So if I were to do something like this, and not to overwhelm anyone, which I hope that I won't, but I'm just illustrating how Caspio functions in this case. So if we go to Manage Patients and click Edit, and then we go into the results page, I could add a calculated field, and we can do total medications as our label, and then we can just do select sum or select, we'll see, but I believe it's select count. My brain is not fully awake. Select count. So let's go into our tables of medication. So we'll just do no, it's select sum because we want a total. So it's not count, it's actually sum. So we'll do select sum. And then we'll go to, we'll grab our field medication ID. Can be any field really. From our table of medication. Where patient ID. Okay, because we're accounting for that patient, right? So we want to have patient ID equals target dot, and then we want to just include the patient ID as a field. Let me verify. Hopefully that's right. No, it's not right. Oh, let me see. Maybe it is select count. In this case, because it's not a, yeah, it's count. Sorry, select count. Let me see. Valid formula. Okay, select count. So we're counting all the medication ID, the primary key from the medication table where patient ID equals target patient ID. So if all goes well, which I haven't done this in a long time, yeah, you can now see total medications 3 for that patient. So it's simply counting how many medication IDs exist in the medication table where, and again, we employ RLS, record level security, in the SQL statement where patient ID equals to target patient ID. So you want to make sure you select the right patient ID from that table in order to get the total for 3. And if I had a different patient listed, let's just say, I'm just going to add really quickly another patient here. Let's say Shelly Smith. Shelly Smith at patient ID. It's just something random test. So let's come back here and you'll see 0 because Shelly has no medications assigned yet. But if we go to patient details, now we can add something for Shelly. There is 1 medication now found. If we go back to manage patients, you will see 1. So that's a very simple example of a SQL statement that we can add inside a data page in order to calculate things like that. And also can be applied towards dashboards too. Once again, before I let everybody go, again, thank you so much for attending. I always appreciate people's attendance. I always say this, I don't want to say it, but I say it anyway. Without your attendance, there's no live stream. Just keep that in mind. So as long as you attend the live stream, you don't even have to listen to me. Just keep it pulled up in a tab and then you can work on other stuff. You can mute me. But your attendance is very appreciated. The application that we develop in these live streams is always made available in the description of the YouTube video. So if you come back in the afternoon, you'll see a link to download this application that we built today. And then you should be able to import this application into your account and see it listed here on the home screen. That way you can learn from it and you can see what we developed just if you want to practice and reuse some of the functionality in that application for your own applications. Okay. Again, thank you so much. Good to see most of the regular attendees coming back and some new ones. Finesse, thank you for joining us today. Maybe you have attended in the past, but I haven't remembered the name, but moving forward, I will. Because I like the finesse around your name, so. Thanks, King Capo, I appreciate it. First time? Yeah, that's what I thought. And then Lucas, I gotta figure out a way to get a hold of you. Can you do me a favor in this case? Go to our chat, our live chat. So if you go to our homepage, say for example, Caspio.com, and you speak to somebody, just in your questions, just say, can you send my email to Ned? He does the live stream. And then include your email. They'll let me know what your email is, and I'll try to email you, okay? The next session will be in 2 weeks. So this next session will be, let's see, on the 24th of April. And then the 8th of May, and then another one in 2 weeks after that. And then I'll be off for 2 months because I'm expecting my second baby to arrive early June. And yeah, I go on pat leave for 2 months. So we're going to take a little bit of a break again from the live stream. But we will be back, hopefully stronger than ever. I know I'll be a bit tired from having that second kid. The first one was brutal, especially those first 2 months. Lack of sleep, baby brain. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. But yeah, good times ahead for both my personal life and the live stream. All right, I won't keep you any longer. Thank you so much for attending. Have a good rest of your week. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time. I don't have a topic yet lined up, but we will soon enough in a couple of days. We should have that available. If you'd like to see something inside the live stream, you can always send me an email. So here's my email before I forget. Last thing I'll mention. If anybody wants to see something out of these live streams, definitely let me know. And even if it's your application, that's completely fine. You know, I'm not going to sign any NDAs, but just keep in mind that if you do give me something to create that you want create yourself, it's going to be made live. Okay, so it's going to be available in the live stream for everybody else to consume. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Some people don't mind, some people do, especially if it's a SaaS type application, if it hasn't been done before and no one has done it, which I would find very surprising because there's so many now different types of SaaS applications available. All right. Again, thank you so much. I'm going to end the live stream now, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time. Have a good day, night, morning, depending on where you joined us from. Bye-bye.